Okay, so the latest of the race for the mayor now, and candidate Brad Bradford is calling on the TTC to guarantee that all riders get access to the cell service on the transit network. It's definitely a hot button issue in this campaign, and Councillor Bradford, also candidate Bradford, joining us here live on CP24 Live at Noon. So let's talk about your call here. You know, the Rogers Committee say no guarantees people using other carriers will be able to call home. Another example of the deferral and delay that holds Toronto back. How do you see a solution to this then?
Well, we need to make sure that the TTC board holds Rogers to account in terms of this agreement. It is not good enough for TTC customers and Torontonians to not have access to cell service on the TTC. And from day one of this agreement, that needs to be opened up, not just to some TTC customers, but all of them. Regardless of your carrier, you need to have access to cellular service on the TTC, and that has to happen on day one.
I see you're calling for them to sort of address this at the April 13th board meeting. That, of course, is happening before the mayoral election on June 26th. If that doesn't happen, if they don't address this, and if you win on the 26th, how do you think you could potentially undo or fix this situation, which, quite frankly, has been lingering for more than a decade in the city?
That's right. If you go back to the original agreement, the 2012 RFP, it actually stated that 60% of customers needed to have access to cellular service within 1 year of the agreement being signed. The TTC has not held BAI accountable to that for more than a decade. This is a takeover of that agreement. So you start there and you make sure that on day one it is clear. We open this up to all of the carriers. We make sure that regardless of what provider you're using, you have access to cellular on the TTC on day one.
I know you were just re-elected to council for the second time, you know, obviously just only a few short months ago. What is it about this BAI contract that seemed to go under the radar and almost unnoticed at how little was really happening here? And how do you think that that can be avoided going forward? Because here we are, they got that in, 2012, and we still don't really have any good service.
The infrastructure that was put in was never very good, and it doesn't cover the entirety of the TTC network as promised, as prescribed, so that's a problem. And technology has moved so far so quickly. The systems require much more bandwidth than what they did a decade ago, if you think about your own devices, your own cell phones, and how you use them. So there is an infrastructure upgrade that is required. I understand that this agreement will take that into account, but what must be accounted for is that everybody has access to cellular in the TTC. There are plenty of examples to point to here in this country. Vancouver's SkyTrain, Montreal's Metro, they have all been able to move forward with all carriers making that investment together to ensure that everyone has access. Rogers needs to make sure, not just talking about opening it up to other providers, but making sure other providers have access to that so that all of our customers can access cellular on day one on the TTC.
So it's not that it hasn't been done or can't be done before. There are case examples in the country of doing that. Okay, let me turn to something else that's sort of topical right now, but it's good that we have you here. We've just learned today that MLSE, in fact, won't be on the hook necessarily for any of the costs or potential losses, if that would even be possible, with the World Cup. What's your take on this? Because some people are calling it a sweetheart deal. They say, this letter went out in February. MLSE is putting a statement out about it now. What do you think should be happening here when it comes to MLSE and the World Cup?
Well, the World Cup is an amazing opportunity for the city of Toronto. All eyes from around the globe here focused on Toronto, the biggest sporting event anywhere. However, Toronto's not ready. We are a city that is absolutely caught up in gridlock. Traffic doesn't move. Our streets are dirty. Crime is on the rise. So we as City Council, we as the City of Toronto have a lot of work to get ready. And as Mayor of Toronto, I will be focused on getting the little things right, getting us ready for 2026, which is still a few years away. But we have a lot of work to do to unclog the gridlock, to clean up the streets, and to reduce the crime.
You want to get things right. Is it wrong that MLSE at this point is not necessarily going to be on the hook, though? They say they've paid for refurbishments to BMO Field, for example, but what are your thoughts specifically on MLSE?
MLSE is the operator of BMO Field. It is a city asset. We know that, but additional investments are going to be required for the World Cup. MLSE is working to have an agreement with the city on a cost recovery basis, and so we would be working with MLSE to deliver those improvements in order to be hosting the World Cup. But all three levels of government have to come to the table on this. It has never been more expensive to live in the city of Toronto. Affordability is top of mind for me and everybody, and we have to be very careful with our dollars. This cannot be done without the province. It cannot be done without the federal government. And working with MLSE, frankly, an organization that has the expertise to do this, is a smart, prudent way to move forward. But again, the city of Toronto, we have to get the streets unlocked from the gridlock. We have to clean things up. We have to reduce the crime. We have a lot of work to do to get ready for 2026, and that's what I'm focused on.
And you're getting ready for June 26 as well. Okay, Councillor and candidate Brad Bradford, thanks for joining us on CP24 Live at Noon today. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks very much.
All right.